and I'll start to post some bits and pieces that are coming up so I can get this to work. Firstly, hopefully everyone's having a fantastic day today. A little bit warm here in Mandurah, but you know, look, it was bound to happen. It's been weird and wacky weather, but yeah, ready to get into it. Super excited to talk about the topic at hand today, which is expectations of SEO, expectations of SEO, what it can and can't do, and then expectations of the agency you work with, and then also covering off some KPIs. That's a bit of a bonus segment on my personal thoughts on KPIs and what KPIs you should be setting for your agency that you work with. Now, bear with me, please, for a second as I just share this to the appropriate places it needs to be shared. In the meantime, yeah, just feel free to ask any questions. Be interested to know how everyone's day has been today and whether they're kicking the goals they've set out to kick. Sorry, just 1 second. Just sending this to LinkedIn. As always, guys, the chat is on the right-hand side here. If you have any questions, please just whack them in the chat and I'll endeavor to answer them as we sort of go along. And 1 second, ladies and gentlemen, just setting this up. But yeah, hopefully everyone's doing well today. Again, I'm just trying to get this set up. There's no way of setting up what I'm doing mid-stream. You've got to, before the stream, you've got to like go in there and specifically set it up, which is fine, but it does make the first couple of minutes of this waffle on. So guys, if you have any questions today, put them in the chat. I love questions because questions hold me accountable to what I'm saying, and I can personalize what I'm saying a little bit more to what you need specifically as a business owner or an agency or whatever. I'm just here to answer questions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it. So guys, KPIs and expectations, they're super important, but they seem to be one of the things in SEO that's not really spoken about much. You should have very clear expectations of what SEO can and can't do, which we covered off yesterday. So if you didn't get a chance, go and have a look at that. But also expectations of what SEO, how the mechanics of SEO and how it works, and realistic expectations of delivery. And also expectations of the agency or the entity you're working with, whether it's a freelancer or an SEO or an agency or what have you. You should have I'm going to get my PS2 in there. Why not? You should have realistic expectations of that as well. And KPIs, key performance indicators, they're very important. And different agencies have different KPIs that they work towards, but we need to sort of educate you guys on what you should be expecting and what I would personally set KPIs to be. So let's just get straight into it. So I'm gonna start by talking about expectations of SEO itself, and I'll cover agencies after this. So guys, please, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. So just put them in your chat wherever you're watching from, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever. Just drop them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go along. So expectations of SEO. So one of the things I commonly see here, for those who don't know me, I'm Jimmy from My Online Guy, and we're, at its core, we're a digital marketing agency. We do websites, SEO, Google Ads, Facebook ads, content, and social media. But I like to think we're more than that. At its core, we just help good people that are down to earth, that do great work, be renowned for it at scale. And if that means we have to spin a sign at the front of a shop to get more business, we're willing to do that, because I just want to see good people compete with people that use marketing as a tool to generate business, because they can't lean on referrals and doing good work as that. So we just help in that aspect. And quite frankly, why I started this series is I hate seeing this industry is just full of people that rip off others, and I'm sick of it. So I'm doing my bit to help reduce that. So we got a question here: how do you measure SEO success? I'm going to get into that in a lot of detail, because I think there's a lot of people that say SEO isn't measurable, as in like it's difficult to determine whether you had success or failure. But really, I think people use that as a bit of a rod for their own back because it's technically true, but it's kind of not. So bear with me, Mr. Facebook user. Bear with me for a sec. I just want to cover off a few expectations of what SEO realistically can do and the timeframes it works in, and then expectations of an agency, and then we'll talk about KPIs. So great question. Keep the questions coming in, guys. If you ask it, I'll answer it. So expectations of SEO itself. So we work with a lot of clients here, SEO clients, and in this space, I'm reasonably well known for SEO. And one of the things, the first conversations I have, we're pretty transparent here. So I have a lot of conversations with clients about timeframes around SEO and realistic timeframes of when SEO, how long SEO is going to take to work, and how the mechanics of how it works. It's industry dependent, but most SEO campaigns, you're not going to really start to see results, tangible, and you'll see results as in more higher rankings and more clicks. But to see tangible results that actually tip the needle, it needs at least 8 to 10 months. And this is pretty much across the board. What changes in that is it might be 10 months, it might be 6 months, it might be 12. But SEO needs a disproportionate amount of time to work, a disproportionately long amount of time to work compared to other marketing techniques. The flip side of that is that, let me talk it. So like I said, 8 to 12 months, and I might even bring up a quick example to show you this, how it works, because it might give a little bit more context. So let me know in the chat if you'd like me to bring up a couple of examples here, just so we are talking about the same thing. So let me just share my screen for a second, and I'll bring up an example. Hopefully they're happy for me to show it. But this is the first example that popped up. That's right. So this is the first. So this is Google Search Console. This is Google's actual connection. This is our actual connection to Google itself. And so this data is coming from Google. Now, something I would like to show you guys here is how long SEO takes to work. So expectation is, so the first myth I want to bust about expectation is that it's not something that works overnight. So you can see here, I've got a client here. I started with them in July last year. And you can see here, nothing, one click, couple of impressions. This is months and months of that. And then all of a sudden, bit of traction, a few clicks, and then bang, it takes off like a rocket. So this 8-10 months of this, so this was from July last year to April, basically. So July to April is 10 months. So that's 8 months. And then 10 months, June, to get it really off the ground. So that's 10 to 11 months. The reason SEO takes this long to have this kind of traction where it's nothing. We're still doing SEO during this period, link building content, everything like that, and then just banging it out like that is, and I'm just going to go back to my screen for a sec. So feel free to ask questions if you have them. But the reason SEO takes so long to work and to be effective is because of the way Google is designed and search is designed. It's not just going to serve up any old result. It knows that for Google to make the most money possible in their ads, they need to make sure they're showing up the best result possible in those first results. And I covered this off a couple of days ago. But why it takes so long, and this is why the expectation is so odd with SEO, and why it takes 8, 10, 12 months, and we're pretty consistent with that. I'll just quickly show you this. Pretty much all of our, we've worked with enough clients to know, this one here, worked with enough clients to know that if you just do that 8 to 10, 12 months, you're going to start to see results. So this is another client. You can see they've had a bit of a downswing for some reason, but 8, 10, 12 months, what we're looking at here is this 8 months and then bang up. That's because their content's really seasonal, but we get pretty consistent results. And the reason for that is because we understand how Google, we set the expectation appropriately with clients, and we know how Google works. And basically what Google's doing, for those who, I'll give very, very brief cliff notes, but basically what Google's doing is that when we're sending all these expertise, authority, and trust signals to Google, Google's then receiving these signals and going, okay, well, these guys are saying they do good work. They're saying they're authoritative. They say that there's all these sites that trust them. We're going to try. So let's say you're on the 4th page, 40th position. Google may go, actually, we're going to try you in 30th position. And then it will try you there for a week or 4 days. And then go, actually, we're going to try you in 42. And then we're going to try you in 35. And then we're going to try you in 28. And then back to 35. And then down to... So like the reason SEO takes so long is because you're constantly going like that at the start. Google's trying to establish where you sit relative to the hundreds of thousands of other businesses out there. That's why it takes so long. It's that this toing and froing like this between the ranks, that takes a solid 10 months because Google knows that its biggest advantage it has over fake businesses is time. It's impossible. It's a very difficult thing to replicate. If you're consistently sending signals like this for months and months and months, you can't just start a business overnight and do that. So it knows that like, oh, this business has been around a while and they've been sending us these consistently good signals from an expertise, authority, and trust standpoint for like 10 months. Okay, we're going to start to move them. We're going to make those jumps bigger and we're going to start to leave them in spots for longer and then rinse and repeat, because Google's worst case scenario is that it puts some random fly-by-night business, scammy business at the top, someone gets ripped off, and next thing there's a class action lawsuit on Google because all these people lost millions and millions of dollars, or you get a bad experience and you don't click an ad. So that is the first myth I want to bust with SEO and expectation, is that contrary to what people will tell you, in my experience and with clients, if you realistically aim for sort of the 10-month mark, you'll start to see parabolic growth over the next 4 or 5 months after that. So SEO is going to take at least 10 months to see some tangible results, and if not longer. Some industries it may take years. Some industries you may see that in 4 months. I've had hydraulic company, which I've shown you in the past, it took like 4 months and they started to see parabolic results. It does depend on the industry and how competitive it is, but SEO is really like a rocket. You put a heap, I don't know if you've ever seen a rocket take off, but you put a heap of fuel into it, heaps and heaps of fuel to get it like, a couple of 100 meters off the ground. 70% or something of all the fuel used in a rocket is used in the first couple of minutes of its launch. Then the other 30% is used over the lifetime of the rocket in the air. SEO is the same. All the fuel is used to get that rocket off the ground. And once it's got momentum, it starts to use less and less fuel. And eventually it's just hovering in orbit and it's using very little fuel. That's the best way analogy I have for SEO is like, this like jumping is like the rocket moving this far off the launch pad. And then as it goes further, the jumps get bigger, they stay more stable, they stay in those spots for longer. And then once you're in orbit, you're in orbit. So that's the first myth I want to bust. An expectation is that SEO, if you need immediate results or like immediate short-term results, SEO is not for you. Now, where does SEO sit in the value proposition? So again, this is another conversation I have. An expectation is like, what is the difference between Google ads? Why wouldn't I just run Google ads? And that's a very good point. I personally think you should do a holistic marketing strategy that involves Google ads. But let me answer that question specifically. So the reason I have my own personal theory on this, and there'll be people out there that disagree with me, but it's in Google's best interest that you pay as much as you can for those ads, right? They have a financial incentive for you to pay more for your ads. Now, this is unconfirmed. This is all like tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, but I have anecdotal evidence that Google over time boils the frog slowly when it comes to Google ads. So you may be paying like $7 a click for your ads. In 3 years, that might be $11 or $12. You won't even realize because they have whole rooms of data scientists that are there to work out what is the time between how can we do this without raising suspicion. That's my personal opinion. And it's anecdotal, and I've seen other people have the same opinion, but where the difference, so where the value, why SEO is pushed so hard as a long-term business strategy is this. So let's say, for instance, you're charged $2,000 a month for SEO, and it's for the first like 12 months. So the way we do SEO here is we use that rocket as an analogy. So, the first 12 months, because that's where all the fuel is going in, we charge $2,000 a month, say on average, $2,000 a month, get that rocket into orbit, and then we significantly drop the retainer cost, because what we're doing once it's in orbit is just keeping it in there. And it's a bit like a hill. Once you're on top of the hill, you've got to keep an eye out for competitors and like poke a stick down at the competitors. So What we do is we just monitor our competition to see if anyone's making a big push, and then just keep the rocket in orbit. And if then a competitor comes along and is making a concerted effort to do the jump, we do more of a concerted effort, basically put more fuel in the rocket and then go back to orbit. So that's how we do it, right? So like in that structure, let's say you are spending $2,000 a month for 12 months, which works out to be 24 grand, right? Over a 12-month period. Then let's say that drops to 500 a month. So that 24 grand, it might, and depending on the SEO company you work for, if they set KPIs, might get you consistently 30, 40 leads a month by that sort of month 12 mark. You should be getting consistent flow of leads that are repeatable. So let's say it's for the first 10 months, you're getting no leads, zero, getting donuts every month. And then month 11, it might be 10, month 12, it might be 20, month 13, it might be 25. And then eventually you just plateau at like 40, 50 leads a month. This is where SEO has the advantages. So with Google Ads, you pay for every single one of those leads through a cost per click and a return on ad spend. So if you're paying $7 a click and you convert half of those, you might be paying $14 per inquiry. Now with SEO, you've paid you've basically front loaded that cost, and then your cost per acquisition goes down per every client you get after that. So like you may pay $24,000 up front and not getting much for it. But if you spread that $24,000 over the life that should be generating inquiries, it's inverse to Google Ads. The more leads you generate as the cost is there, the less those leads cost. And so like if Google Ads is like steady like this, you're paying $14 per inquiry. Google SEO is like that. But then it's SEO, we'll do it this way. So Google Ads is like this, that's $14 a lead, like this. And then SEO is like this. So you pay a huge upfront cost, and Google Ads is like running along here, it's huge upfront cost. And then it slowly goes like this, and eventually it goes like this. Your cost per click after you've paid off that initial investment, or you've paid off that initial upfront front loading of costs to do the work, your cost per acquisition should go down long term compared to Google Ads, which is hypothetically, anecdotally, will go up. That is the expectation of SEO. So like when someone's charging you $2,000 a month to do SEO, think about it as the overall cost of doing the SEO, and then try and cost average that over the life of the campaign. And I'm just going to answer a couple of questions here. I had a few pop in. So Peter, do you find that you have conflicts of interest doing SEO for same types of business, or are there? I don't personally do SEO for multiple clients in the same niche, depending on location. So like if there was two plumbers in Mandurah that wanted me to do it, I wouldn't do it, simply because it's a zero-sum game. For one of those clients to be number one, the other one has to be number two. So I just have I know a lot of clients, and so like there's positives and negatives of that. The positives of really niching down and doing multiple clients in the same space is that you get economies of scale on the tools, and you start to learn the industry really well. The negatives of that is that unless you're very transparent about it, like if you got two clients and they're happy for that to happen, I'll work with both of them. But I would have a conversation with them all, going, this is the end result: is one of you will be second and one of you will be first. You guys decide which ones you want to be, but that's how it's going to work. And I would, if the clients are happy with that, then I'm happy with that. But I would generally not do that. Okay, so I would love your opinion on this. Will SEO exist in 5 years? While there are search engines in the current form, there will always be SEO. What may make SEO? I think what SEO fundamentally is will change. I think we'll always be optimizing for search engines or some type, whether it's Google in the future or a different one. We'll always be finding ways to, because that's human nature. We're always trying to find the 1%ers and optimizing. Otherwise, there would be like zero cheating in any sport. It's just human nature to do that. What I think will change is how we do SEO. So at the moment, we build expertise, authority, and trust. In the future, I think a lot of that decision making will be done by Google, and all we'll be doing is producing really, really high quality content and building up the entity of the business itself. That's where I think SEO will be in 5 years, but I don't think it will. I don't think it will not exist. I think there's always going to be a need for people to help businesses out. But what I think just the way we do it will change. And that's why one of our values is evolution, because if you're not keeping in front of that wave, then you're on the back of it, right? It's like surfing. Only one person can be on a wave at any one time. Well, hypothetically, only one person can be on a wave. If you're not paddling first and you're not on that wave and on that board first as you're going into the wave, then you're supposed to fall off the back of it. And that's the same here. Is like, if you're not constantly evolving and keeping up with how Google's thinking about how people, if you're not, and it's not keeping up with the specific tactics, it's keeping up with the philosophical way that Google is evolving the search engine in a way. It's like, at the moment, they talk a lot about entities and talking a lot about the entity of the business, not necessarily specific parts. And there's a really good guy, Bernard, over at Kalicube. He's dedicated his whole SEO career to it, and it's amazing stuff. It's really on the cutting edge. Is that applicable now? It's only at the very start of that part of it, but it doesn't mean I don't watch it, even though from a practical standpoint, very few businesses require the level of detail that Kalicube goes into. I think it's important to be aware of it and be constantly one ear to the ground. It's why there's in any marketing, you spend a disproportionate amount of your time keeping up with the evolution of this, because this industry it's not like television that's been around for 60 years. This is quite a new industry, and it's constantly being evolving. Search engines have only realistically been around for 25 years. So who knows? In 25 years, we could all have chips in our head and all be hooked into the matrix. Who knows? But I think there'll always be a need for businesses needing help, because you can't be good at everything as a business owner. So there'll always be we'll always end up doing something for businesses, whether it's SEO specifically as we know it. Who knows? If I had to have a very black and white answer about that, SEO will exist, and then with a big asterisk next to it. All right. So expectations. SEO is going to take 10 months, at least 10 months to start working, and I'd love to hear other people's SEO's opinion on that. It has if you think about the cost of SEO as an upfront blob of costs, basically you're just front loading the costs, same way you would build a website, and then your returns are going to be a year from there. But then the overall cost per acquisition will go down with every lead that you get. That's a good way to think about SEO, and comparing that to Google Ads, where it's not as big or upfront cost, but you're going to be paying the same amount, less, and then you hit the threshold, but your cost per acquisition stays the same because your Google ad costs stay the same. But the SEO eventually starts to drop down to a point where it's like you're charging $500 a month and you're still getting 50 leads a month. You start to recoup that cost quite quickly. So that's the best way to think about SEO. And it depends on what you're trying to achieve. That's for a small business. But if this will lead into KPIs. This is, your goal may not be leads. It may be sales, or maybe building awareness, whatever. That changes the dynamic slightly. Now, so that's expectations of SEO and what it can and can't do. I've covered that off yesterday. Now let's quickly talk about expectations of an agency. Now I'm going to get crucified for this because I don't know if I really should talk about it, but I believe in transparency, right? I have very, very strong opinions about how an agency should be run, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to run an agency. I just want to really qualify that, because there is a lot of bloody good agencies out there that have completely different models to me, and they do amazing work. So I just want to qualify that. I want to be a bit of a Switzerland here. I'm only going to talk about my personal experience and what I set my clients' expectations to be of us as an agency, because I think that's important. So first and foremost, I think the expectation. So I want to qualify something here. This might go back into SEO expectations of SEO itself. SEO is not black magic. It's not like something we learn in some guild that you have to be a stonemason in a stonemason guild to know. Everything I know about, God, this is going to be terrible to sound, but everything I know about SEO, I've learned off YouTube and practical experience, just working on stuff. But I'm completely honest about that. Everything I've learned about SEO, I've learned off YouTube and just having a lot of practical projects and client projects to work on and test and things like that. So the beauty about that is that A, you can learn it yourself if you have the time and inclination, and B, everything can be fact checked if you know how to use YouTube. So like expectations of an agency, this leads into that. Communication. So what do we offer as agencies that you couldn't offer? So like the first decision you need to make as a business owner when thinking about SEO is whether you should do it yourself versus using an agency or using someone like ourselves. That's the first decision you need to make. It's like, do I have the time, inclination, and time and inclination to trade time for money and do it myself? If you do, more power to you. Approach an agency and go, look, I really want to give this a crack myself. Would you be willing to consult? If a business owner came up to me tomorrow and said, I wanted to learn SEO, I really want to find an interest in it. Can we just do like a weekly consult or a monthly consult and you just help guide me in the right direction? No business has actually asked me that question, but I'd be happy to do it. I mean, I'll charge for it. I'll charge appropriately for my time, but you could get the education as well as if you've got the time to do it. Now, not every business owner has the time. YouTube University, yeah. I mean, I would be sitting here lying if it wasn't YouTube. I mean, I've done courses as well. I've done some amazing courses actually, but like if I don't know how to do something, I don't sit here. I ask my network and I look at YouTube. So why you would use an agency is if you don't have the time to do this stuff. So exchange time for money and a better suite of results. So the biggest thing that people don't realize when they're starting off in their SEO journey as a freelancer, especially, is that it's a very, very difficult thing to do as one person. I have a whole team that helps me, that in this agency that helps me do SEO. Now, the beauty about that is that it gives you a very wide breadth of expertise and experience to lean on. So like if you had it, I've come across it before where someone's hired an internal marketing person to do SEO for them. Now, they get hired to do SEO, but then they end up doing Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram, email marketing, everything as well. They end up doing all that together and they don't end up doing any of it well. And I think it's unrealistic expectation. If a company was to hire me and go, oh, Jimmy, I'm going to give you 100 grand a year to do SEO, but I just want you, I'd be like, it's never going to happen. Because why you use an agency, and this again, the expectation is that you get to lean on several people's experience, or as a freelancer, you get to lean on a freelancer's experience with a network of people that can help them that you wouldn't traditionally have access to with one person. And so like, I like to preface that. It's like a lot of freelancers have teams that support them as well. There's very few freelancers that solo operators. Generally, they'll either have people offshore that help them, which is perfectly fine if you find the right people. But yeah, very few people are working by your own. And so I think, so we got here leveraging a network. Yeah, look, network is everything. I'm very, very fortunate to have a very, very knowledgeable network of other SEOs. And I only lent on them the other day. There's things called press, they're not a new thing, but press releases. And I've been talking to a mate of mine going, what do you guys think of press releases, using them as a tool for building an entity? And I had 4 different opinions, all different, but coming up to the same conclusion. It's like, well, the brain's trust has spoken. And that's something you access when you work with a freelancer or an agency or someone external, because it's very hard to build that network if you're an internal marketer, unless you have the time, unless the business owner gives you time to do it. So that's another way to, expectation-wise, frame the cost of SEO against hiring someone internally to do the work. Okay, yeah, it's $24,000 a year to get access to me, my whole network, everyone I know, and a swag of results and like a consistent level of results. Or you pay someone like myself 80 to 100 grand a year to move internally without the access to the network unless they bring it to them themselves, without the access to the tools unless you buy it for them, and without the access to the brain's trust. So like it's always worth framing SEO of what it would cost you to do marketing internally, marketing in general compared to that. So let's get back to expectations of an actual agency. So communication. It is the biggest. It's the biggest reason we have almost no churn in this agency when it comes to SEO. It's because I over communicate. I try to, and I sound bragging when I say that, but it's something I'm very proud of. We have no trouble with clients because we set expectation correctly, we set KPIs, and we communicate. When you're working, that would be my first thing. Expectation of any agency is I would be finding out how they communicate and whether that fits how you communicate as a human being. So like if you like getting on the phone and talking, but your agency is impossible to contact on the phone, then it's not a fit. If the agency, if you don't like being on the phone or getting videos and you like reports, and the agency that you work with is just big on face-to-face comms and stuff, they're not a fit. And that will immediately create a big chasm between you because you can't communicate. So like that's the first thing I would do as a business owner is ask because like SEO is SEO, right? Yeah, there's different levels and people do it, and we'll talk about KPIs in a sec. But what separates all of us is all this intangible stuff like communication. So that's the first thing I would be asking a business owner, a agency is like, also, how do you generally communicate? And then I would be throwing a few scenarios their way. So like, oh, what if I need to call you guys? Oh, so like with me, it'd be like, oh, yeah, here's my number. Just call me whenever. Just be respectful of the fact that I've got kids and stuff. But if it's an emergency, just call me. Like I'm approachable. Or do you guys? Am I able to come in and have a monthly meeting with you guys in the office? And if they can't do that, and that's what your expectation is, because that's how you do business yourself, then that should be your expectation of the agency. And that's my biggest piece of advice: is if the way the agency communicates doesn't marry up with how you communicate within your business, then it's never going to work. It's like dating someone that's really, really hot, but has a personality of a whatever, like it's all the novelty wears off after a while, and then you're just left with communication. And if you can't communicate, it'd be like you wouldn't work with if you're English speaking, you wouldn't work with a German agency that's only spoke German. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter whether it's vocal communication or reporting. I would also ask as a company to see an actual report. Get them to send you an example of the way they communicate. And seriously, if you get the communication right, you can fix 99% of the problems with KPIs and logistics and work. So that's the first thing. The second thing would be expectation would be tangible results. It's not from tangible results in the fact that there needs to be a clear path to the chosen land, and whether that's leads or more, traffic or whatever those KPIs you set, you need to work with an agency that is KPI driven and can give you the path through. That's probably the more subjective one of the others. I don't necessarily believe that you should only work with an agency with experience, because quite frankly, like if I hadn't worked with my first couple of clients, I wouldn't be here today. You need to give people that are hungry a break. And to be fair, if you're just starting out and you're good at what you do, you're going to work extra hard to get it done. And I think that's what people don't appreciate about people new to the industry is that, like, if you're hungry, they're the best people to work with because they're going to do everything in their power to make sure they got results. I remember my first client, he held me to task and he threw me over the coals. I remember producing content for him. He's like, Jimmy, this is embarrassing. And I was gutted. I was like, oh my God, maybe I'll go back to just doing affiliate sites and working for myself. But I pulled up my bootstrap and said, well, I better get better at doing content then if this is the client's expectations. And I'm a better marketer for it. I worked extra hard and I won his trust back. I don't think so. Like, my expectation will be just someone that's going to put in the effort, and you can generally tell that. I think business owners are a good gauge of effort, and I would just be asking them questions about, like, see if they get excited talking about what they do. That has always been my bellwether. High watermark is if I'm talking to someone about a car, and they're trying to sell a car, and they're just super excited about cars. They love cars. They love they can tell you everything about the car because they just love what they do. That's all you need, because if you love what you do, that manifests in the work that you do. And if you don't love what you do, then you can generally pick that up if you drill hard enough. If little other things too, This comes down to just like doing, this wasn't what this was about today, but I think it's worth qualifying, is like, ask the person you're talking to. Generally, you'll be speaking to an account manager, not specifically here at My Online Guy, but in general. If you're speaking to an account manager, just ask, be cognizant that they're not going to know a lot. Like if you drill them on SEO, you'll probably hit bedrock at some point, because you can't be experts at everything. That's what SEO analysts are for. They have teams that help them, right? Which is fine. But ask them internally, ask them like, what is the SEO team, how do they keep in the loop with SEO? You know, how do they keep ahead of the trends and keep, and like, if you asked me that question, firstly, I'll be pleasantly surprised because I'll talk to you all day about it. But secondly, I'll be like, oh, look, you know, I really love Marie Hayes, you know, Callie Cube. I'm in pretty much every Facebook group there is when it comes to UX and SEO and everything like that. Then you can see the passion. Like if you're keeping up with the rest of the trends. So like if you're dealing with an account manager, that could be a really good question to ask, because, you know, if you're a mechanic, my expectation of you would be to keep up with modern cars and trends and everything like that. So you may use publications, you may use YouTube for that, who knows? But that would be a question I would ask. And you could, there's no reason why you can't ask a marketer the same thing. Go, oh, look, you know, I just love to know where you guys get your information from, and just, you know, so where do you guys get all, you know, what industry, you know, how do you guys keep upskilled in trend? And then an account manager should tell you that. I think personally, account managers should really know that stuff of the people they're working with, because they should be trying to keep abreast of it too. If they're a good account manager, they should be trying to keep abreast of it as well, because they should have a genuine interest in what they're trying to sell you. So just use that as another way of qualifying what they know. I wouldn't ask about accreditations. I think having an expectation of an agency having accreditation in something is just not realistic. There's not really any accreditations in this industry. But what you can ask is, you know, again, where they go to get their information, and you know, what are some of their biggest wins they've gotten in SEO. You know, it's like your expectation is that there should be a track. You know, as much as it's like you should get a discount for using someone that's up and coming. But if you're using an established agency, they should be able to justify their cost and why they do stuff. And it's not all tangibles. Like when you're working with me and I'm charging a couple of grand a month, what you're getting for that is not only the results, which I get consistently, but you're getting the tangible value of a lot of experience. Whether people think that's value or not is irrelevant. That's what my experience is worth to the clients I work with. So I'd also do that. So that just comes down to personal expectation. If you need it to really work for you, maybe look for someone that's a little bit, you know, that is right ahead of the wave. But if you're, you know, if this is just another addition to the marketing you're doing, and you can afford to try and upstart and take a little bit more risk, that's what I would be doing. I would be trying to find someone that's super hungry, that really wants to learn. Then, you know, just helping them succeed, asking, you know, trying to be part of the conversation. And, you know, I'll never forget my first clients giving me that shot, and I'll always help them if they need it. So yeah, that's expectations. Now let's quickly talk about KPIs. I can't talk for much. I've got a meeting at 1 o'clock with the client, but is there any questions about what I covered off there? I think it's super important, and I could talk all day about this because I have very, very polarizing opinions about how like I said, I think an agency should be run. But again, do they marry up with clients? Not all the time. But all I can say is we have very low churn rates here. Our clients generally see their whole retainer out, and we don't have lock-in contracts. We just do month by month. So we have to be doing something right for that to happen. But while I'm waiting for a couple of questions, I'm just going to continue and put your questions in. They show up on the right-hand side. I can answer them as we go. I'm going to talk about KPIs for a sec. So key performance indicators. Any marketing you do, you should have KPIs. If that is a big red flag if you're working with an agency, if they refuse to set KPIs for you. Now, these KPIs don't have to be a hard number. It's actually very difficult to come up with a hard number in SEO because there's so many variables that affect it. I generally work off deliverables because I have enough experience to know that if we do X, Y, and Z, the end result is this. But KPIs, I'm going to talk about them generally. So like a lot of clients that are coming here that have spoken to other agencies before, they talk about the amount of keywords they rank for. It's an absolutely terrible KPI, or where they rank. Absolutely terrible KPI. And I'm going to go into detail. I'm going to cover off most of that. it's a terrible KPI to measure the success or failure of an SEO campaign for two reasons. Firstly, I can rank you number one for lots of keywords. Are they going to generate traffic and are they going to generate inquiries? Don't know. If your goalposts are just get you as many keywords as possible, I could rank a website for thousands and thousands of keywords using content. Does that mean you're going to get inquiries? I don't know. You're just throwing a dart at the wall, because you can't, if you're using that as your reference point, and SEO will do their absolute best to get you that. But if your reference point, if your KPI is inquiries or leads, then it's different. The whole goalpost changed, and the tactics you use change. The other reason I don't like using rankings as KPIs is because of this. Firstly, they fluctuate. Secondly, they fluctuate a lot as well. So, like if you're hanging your hat on rankings and they all drop, it doesn't mean in 3 months they're not going to recover. And it's really, really frustrating as an SEO to be able to go, this is how SEO works. Spend all this time explaining how SEO works, and then they go, oh, all our rankings dropped. And I was like, yeah, what's happened is this has done that. But trust me, in a week or two, it's going to be back to this. It's just really frustrating. But the other reason, the main reason I don't like using rankings as the keyword rankings as the goalpost is this. So if I was just to search, I'm going to search plumber Mandra, for instance. This is quite an eye-opener for people once I show this. So there's a thing called zero-click entities or zero-click results. So like I said, Google's main job is to generate as much income as possible. So the way they do that is by putting zero-click results in there. You can see, if I was to just be honest about this result, these are ads. We covered them off. So that's an ad. They're ads, right? Google makes money off that. Google makes money off this. This is Google's entity. This belongs to Google. You click on that. Someone clicks on directions or clicks your number. They go straight to the number, which is good for your business, but it belongs to Google. Then in here, normally there would be questions as well. You would have seen them. There's normally a question box. That belongs to Google. So Google is putting more and more zero-click results in the search. And what that does is it keeps you on Google for longer and not in businesses for longer. But what it actually creates is a thing called a true first position. So you think about it, you look at the size of my screen. If I land on this, the results are actually, the first result's actually here. And that first result is like 700 pixels down. So realistically, we're actually in like 7th position when you think about it, or 6th position in the search after all this. If you think about it like that, sometimes it doesn't necessarily make sense to rank. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily make sense to rank for the first position of plumber Mandra. It's important. That's like something you want to achieve because you can go down the pub and tell your mates you do it, but they may not generate all your inquiries because Google's got so much crap on there that you're actually, even if you rank first, you're technically in 7th position. It actually makes a lot more sense to just run ads for Google Plumber because you're in 7th position if you hit the first spot. But it also changes the tactics. So being in the first spot is not always going to generate the leads you expect. That's why I don't like using it as using keywords as my KPIs. So what other KPIs are there? Well, there's traffic. Traffic's that's like a halfway between, and depending on what your goals are, that can be a really good one. So if you're trying to build brand awareness, then it is just traffic. So traffic, that's easily manipulated too, though. Like a lot of, good content can drive that. But really, if you're a service-based business like a plumber, you should be going to the business, you should be going to the SEO company you're working with going, I need this many leads a month. I understand it's going to take 12, 15 months to do, but I need this many leads a month. Can you do it? And when they go, yeah, sure we can, then you go, how are you going to do it? And the company should be able to go, well, Jimmy, that's pretty ambitious, but it's possible. It's not like what you're saying is impossible. What we're going to have to do though is redesign the website. It's got a better SEO friendly structure, add more content to it. And then we're going to improve your expertise, authority, and trust. And these are the ways we're going to do that. I also suggest we target non-commercial content, drive some of that to the traffic. If an agency is able to explain how they're going to get you to that point, then there's a good chance they've done it for someone else in the past. because we don't hang. You'll find this, it's a running joke in the industry, but SEOs rarely hang their hat on numbers because it's so hard to do it. But what I would say in that situation, if you're like, oh, Jimmy, we need 50 leads a month, I'll be like, look, SEO will get us a long way there. I don't know the exact number, but really to guarantee that, we need to be running ads as well, Google ads, because we can control that narrative a lot better. And then what we can do is, as the SEO starts to pick up, we can just reduce the ad spend, so we're getting less inquiries through ads and more through SEO. And then, it might be a combination of both, but we'll get you that number. If that number gets you to where your goal is, then we'll get you numbers. So I wouldn't be expecting a SEO to commit to a physical number of X amount of leads a month, but I would be expecting him to give you a plan of attack on how to get there. And a lot of marketers will hedge their bets by doing other stuff as well. Because, if you go to me and go, Jimmy, if I get 50 leads a month, I can not only pay what you need. I know SEO is going to take 12 months to do. You've explained that, but by 12 months, I need to be consistently getting 50 leads a month. Because I need to get a second vehicle on the road, and I can do that if I have 50 leads a month. What can I do? I'd be like, okay, well, let's do this, this, and this. This guarantees us get there. Book your car in 12 months because we're going to get it if we do this. And it might be a combination of Google ads or whatever. But if you come to an SEO or you come to a marketer, so the biggest mistake you can make when you go to any marketing company is have no tangible goal, because the SEO will just take the space that's given. But if you have a hardline goal of, X amount of leads a month, or if you're an e-commerce company, X amount of sales a month, then an SEO worth their salt will make an educated guess on where they think they can do it or not. And most good SEOs won't ruin their reputation on something they have no control over. So if they don't feel extremely confident they're going to get you some way there or get you to the mark of it, most good SEOs won't actually take the job on. And that's the honest truth. Not good SEOs have completely full books, and they only want to make sure they get the wins, because in this industry, you're only as good as your previous clients. So if you have one bad client, you're only as good as they are. You're only as good as your previous clients. So me personally, I can't speak for other agencies, but my reputation in the industry and in the market is more important than short-term financial gain, because I know if I look after that, then the rest will come. So a lot of agencies you speak to, they do believe the same thing. They may not consciously articulate that, but they do believe that. So that would be the other bellwether high watermark I would set. It was like, go to these marketing companies with a goal. It's like, guys, I don't necessarily care how we get there, but I need 50 leads a month. And they're going to go, the account manager is going to go, oh shit, I don't know, they have the answer, but I will find it out. And then they will come and go, look, I don't expect you to give me an answer on whether you can or can't do it now, but that's my expectation. What do you think you can get us to that point? Just touch base when you're ready to have a chat. That's what I'll be going to agencies that are qualified communication-wise, and then I'll be giving them that goal. And then I'll be going, don't worry about budgets. Don't worry about that. You can sort out all that after the fact. You need to make sure the agency you're working with is willing to commit to some kind of goalpost, so that you have a reference point that's not traffic, that's not rankings, because a good SEO knows it's going to take time. And I don't want to have to, like, month on month try and show you metrics that don't actually tip the needle because you haven't turned around and given me an actual goalpost. You should be able to, marketing is one big maze. The end result is over here. That's the end of the maze. And most marketing companies or most business owners, they go, oh, SEO. So they go through the maze, realize it's not going to get them to where they need to be, go back, Google Ads. When really a good marketing company, a good SEO company will see what the end result is and then work back from the end result and work out what needs to happen. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Guys, I'm thinking I might wrap this up here. Please ask any questions if you have them. Tomorrow, it's still penciled in, but I'm going to get a few of my network and my mates on here, and I'm going to ask them similar questions. I'm going to ask them what they expect from clients and the clients, what the client's expectations should be of them, things to avoid. We're just going to have a candid chat. I think that's a good way to end the week. But guys, if you have any questions that you haven't asked here and you're itching to, just find us on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you found this stream, and just tag me in it, and I'll endeavor to answer them for you too. So guys, hopefully you found this valuable. Like I said, I'm Jimmy from Online Guy, and my goal with these series and daily videos is to reduce the amount of businesses that get ripped off in marketing. And if I can do that by giving you a bit of education and taking a bit of my time to do that, well, I'm willing to do that. So guys, thanks once again for tuning in, and I'll catch you all